Good afternoon, and the warmest of welcomes to this afternoon's iOB business webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. My name is Ben, and I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business. Now, if this is your first time joining us on one of these iOB business webinars, first of all, a very warm welcome indeed. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. Now, if this is not your first time joining us, you'll be more than familiar with how these run. But just for those newcomers, I'm going to give us a very, very brief overview of how these webinars operate, just so that you can get a good picture as we're going through today's session. Okay. So once again, my name is Ben. I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business Webinars, and I will be taking you through today's session. Now, if you do have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask them. You can do so in the gray Q&A box at the bottom of the screen there. And in between each of the three topics today, as we always do three, you'll be more than welcome to ask away with any questions. And indeed, we're going to take a moment so that you can jot down any notes or anything like that that you have as well. Okay, so just to get us set up on today's session, there we go. You should be able to see the presentation up on screen there today, nice and smooth. So just before we get kicked off, if you could do me a big favor, just let me know in the chat box if you can hear my voice okay, and if you can see my face up on the screen okay, that would be wonderful. Excellent. Okay, cool. Looks like we're ready to rock. So today's presentation, and let's get kicked off. Being unique in a field of competition. Okay, so as we go through today's session, just a quick heads up, if you do have any issues, you've got any problems, drop them in the chat box. Very rarely, if ever, does it happen, but we always want you to be having a smooth experience. So if anything does happen, do let us know and we'll do what we can to get that sorted for you. Okay, so my name is Ben. I'm a business coach, and what I specialize in is working with small businesses, just like many of those on here today, to help them achieve stability in growth. It's my passion, it's my pleasure, and I'm very much looking forward to, as always, presenting today's webinar to you. So as always, we've got 3 points to talk about today. First of all, controversial opinion, okay? Something I'm going to run through with you here. We're looking at being unique in a field of competition. So how can we as business owners stand out from everybody else around us? So this is why this may seem like a controversial opinion, but I don't want you to spend too much time on your competition. We're going to talk about that in detail. Number 2, define your unique selling points, okay? Critical word here, your, okay? Now, finally, we're going to finish up on go where the competition isn't. All right. So today's webinar is all about getting rid of the competition when it comes to our business operations and how can we operate around them without actually being bothered by them. Okay. So first of all, controversy. Don't spend too much time on your competition. All right. So something I want to talk with you about is that an easy trap is to spend too much time analyzing your competition. Okay, now, if you get sucked into this trap, you'll end up focusing so much on what others are doing around you that you'll actually forget to think about yourself. Now, as ironic as this may sound, you would actually be surprised how often we as business owners or prospective business owners in particular fall into this trap. Okay, let's just say that we own a local bakery. So what we're doing is we're going around our local town and we're looking at the local chains, any big brand chains, any big box chains. We're looking at the little guys. Okay, what is everybody doing? How much do they sell their chocolate buns for? How much do they sell their loaves of bread for? Who's their supplier? Do they make it in-house? Okay, now you spend so much time looking at these prices, looking at the offers that they have, that you don't want to be careful not to actually end up completely replicating these people. Sell your bread at the same price, sell your baked goods at the same price, try and find the same suppliers. Forget that. You've got to look at your unique selling points, which we're going to talk about. Okay. Now, whilst it's always a good idea to know what your competition is doing, you don't want to become obsessed. All right. Now, this is my opinion, my experience in business. You'll see others have different opinions. You might even have a different opinion yourself. The reason that I personally don't like to spend too much time analyzing my competition is because it's not relevant. My goal is to be the best of the best and deliver the highest quality service at the best possible value to the best possible prospects. If you're doing this in any field, it would be very difficult for you to not excel. Okay. Now, the question here is why? Because often in doing so, you attempt to copy their moves, and this is not the way forward. All right. We cannot get into the habit of believing that the only way to progress our own business is by essentially copycatting other businesses in the area or even online. So this doesn't just apply to localized businesses. This was very much an example that we like to use because it makes it very, very easy to understand. But this is very much so, if not potentially even more relevant in the online world, if we're looking at a business like digital agencies. Okay, because every single one of those is unique, because every single one of those agencies has a different leader with a different skill set, with a different team working with them who can offer different varieties of services. So you focus too much on somebody else who's doing paid ads, and you start trying to do the same ads at the same amount for the same fee, same ad spend, same targeting, etc. What are you doing that's unique there? What are you giving your customers in order to come over to you instead of somebody else? What is it that you're actually doing that is unique? Okay, now one of the biggest things that sells our services is our ability to sell and how unique we are, our customer service, our delivery, all of these things. But the absolute biggest thing there is what makes us stand out. Why are we better than everybody else? Don't focus on them, focus on making yourself the best. Okay, now know who your competition is, but do not try to be them. You don't want to just become another link in the chain. You don't want to become another essentially business that's blended in with everybody else. You don't want to just become a standard vanilla run-of-the-mill business that is absolutely bog average, plain standard, doesn't offer anything spectacular, isn't somebody who stands out. Why? Because your income will be plain average, bog standard, something that doesn't stand out. Okay, you've got to know who your competition is so that you know who to beat, but you do not try to be them. Okay, if you fall into this trap, you'll end up becoming very, very gray in your operations because you're copying what somebody else is doing all the time. All right. Now they are focused specifically on their niche, and they may already have an established client base. So if they're doing what works for them, there's nothing to say that that's what's going to work for you either. Okay. Digital agencies specifically are so unique that there's such a variety of different clients and customers that we can all work with. Now, what's working for somebody else might be because they've taken 5-10 years to establish that niche, and they're channeling business, potentially not even through lead generation. Maybe they're a referral setup. You don't know the in-depth details. So if you end up copying their business model, but you don't have all of the operations necessary to get the same clientele that they do, again, it could be a falling point. You're much, much better focusing on what can I sell, who can I sell it to, and how can I sell it? This is absolutely paramount for you to make sure that you retain focus on. Okay. So that brings us to the end of topic number 1. I'm going to give you a brief moment now. Do go ahead and take a moment, jot down any notes that you might have. Thank you for the question. And do indeed feel free to fire in any more questions as we go on throughout today's webinar. And I'll be right back with you in just a moment's time. Okay, wonderful. So moving on now to topic number 2, where we're going to be looking at defining your unique selling points. Okay, so beginning with topic number 1, or point number 1, what makes your digital agency more effective than the rest in your niche? Okay, so by niche, what we're looking at here is a specific area within our industry, okay, and potentially even a specific niche within an industry that you wish to sell to. But for the sake of example, let's keep it really, really straightforward here. Our niche, for example, as a digital agency, could be paid advertising or website development or software development. Okay, these are things that a digital agency would typically offer. Now, as a paid advertising agency, for example, this fits us into a certain niche category where there will be, of course, other digital agencies offering a very similar, if not very, very close service. All right, so what we're looking at here is not necessarily copying everybody else or doing the same thing as everybody else, because remember, we've got to be unique in a field of competition. But what we've got to do is look at what makes us, if we're defining our unique selling points, what makes us more effective than the rest in our niche. If our niche is paid advertising, we're then competing with other agencies that also offer paid advertising. So what do we do that nobody else does? Or what do we do that is unique and exclusive to us? Do we do our research all the time to find the best niches and the best categories to sell to? Do we know how to run the most effective type of ads for the lowest possible budget? Are we really, really squeezing that return on investment for every customer, getting an insane ROI on every advert? Are we the best with graphic design and putting together amazing creatives that catch people's eyes as they're scrolling through their Facebook feed? The list goes on. So you've got to think about what makes your digital agency more effective than the rest in your niche. Okay, now if you can nail this, you can begin to put together a list of unique selling points that will help potential clientele understand why you are not only separate, but you are better than these other digital agencies. And this is how you begin to make yourself unique in a field of competition, because you're not focused on what everybody else is doing. You're focused on what you're doing. Okay. So having a strong presence in a certain niche will greatly help in itself. Now, what you may find is that these other agencies that diversify across multiple different niches, they do find themselves often being spread thin. And when a prospect comes to them, they're saying, oh, well, we do loads of different things. Now, what does this mean in the eyes of the prospect? Sometimes it's a positive, in my experience, sometimes it's a negative. Okay, why? Because it's a jack of all trades, master of none effect. If you offer 20 different services as a digital agency, I'm going to begin to question how actually effective you are in any one of those things. You could be the best in the world at those 20 things, but my perception of you is that, well, if you're off doing web development and graphic design and all the rest of it, how am I going to know that you can actually run my paid ads effectively? Because that's just 1 in 20 services that you do. How do I know that you're not just applying a blank, run-of-the-mill template and hoping that my ads do an all right job? I don't want this, and I definitely don't want it as a prospect. So having a strong presence in a certain niche will help greatly in itself, specifically because if you really, really hone in on this niche and you decide to make it your absolute perfect profession, it's a very, very high chance that you'll be very, very good at it and you'll begin to dominate the niche area. But in addition to that, you'll also reassure customers that, look, hey, this is the only thing we do. This is all of our income. This is our bread and butter. We give 110% to this exact niche, day in, day out, no doubt, no questions asked. Okay. So this is something that you've got to bear in mind when you're looking at this kind of thing, because it will absolutely matter to prospective clients that A, you're not only great at what you do, but B, it is one of the only things that you do. Okay. Now, typically, take a bit of a tangent here. It's not unusual for a digital agency to have between 1 and 3 service offerings. Now, I refer to them as core offerings. Okay. So really it's the core of your business, between 1 and 3 offerings that to your prospects. Okay. So say your 3 core offerings is paid advertising, website development, and paid advertising for websites specifically, or something like that. Okay. They all have to be relevant and tie in with each other. There's a massively broad range because there's so many different services within the digital agency sector that you can offer. But to give you one specific example, we're looking at that paid advertising, expanded category as 1, 2, 3 core offerings. So you can have a bronze, silver, and gold. You can have 1, 2, 3, whatever you like. All right. But if you're focusing on improving your service for your clients, you're not going to worry too much about everything else that's going on. Okay. So the next thing that we have to talk about here, like we just said, improve your service for your clients. Okay. Now, if you've got a healthy roster of clients, like many digital agencies do, businesses that you're taking care of on a day-to-day basis, whether it be web development, paid advertising, email marketing, software utilization, whatever that is that you're offering, you want to make sure that you're improving on that service as often as you can. You're becoming more skilled, you're becoming more agile, you're up to date, you know what's happening in the digital agency sphere all the time. Okay. These are the things that can help you improve your service for your clients, and getting to know each one of them on a personal basis. So far as, say, for example, if they do like meetings or they don't like meetings, how do they like their information given to them? When do they like to pay their invoices? Of course, as long as it's within your payment terms, etc., etc. So you focus on improving your service for your clients. Why? A, because they're going to talk about how great you are. B, you're going to retain these clients long term. It's easier, of course, for you to retain a client that's already paying you money than it is for you to go out and find a new client. Why? Because this client knows you, they like you, they're used to transacting money with you, and they are happy, hopefully, with the service that you offer as well. So if you focus on improving your service for your clients, you're going to help yourself there. Of course, in addition, this also means improving your own service to then go out and get more prospects. You've got a world-class offering, you're going to get world-class clients. Okay, so if people like you, they may choose your agency just for this reason. Okay, if people like you on a personal level, they feel rapport, they feel connection, they feel like you're going to take care of them, they feel like you're skilled in your craft, you know what it is that you're doing, you may very well find that the absolute primary reason for these people wanting to work with you is not necessarily just because you're a great agency with a great offering and a great niche and you're very strong and you're not a jack of all trades, you're a master of one, not none. You might find that people, above all this, they're going to work with you just because they like you. There's multiple, very, very effective, very skilled, very powerful digital agencies, okay? But if somebody likes you, that could be the one and only reason that they decide to work with you. It's a very, very powerful motivator in sales. Now, people always say in the sales industry, people are buying from you. They're not buying the product. Okay. They buy the product because they like to buy from you. So if people like you, they may choose your digital agency just for this reason. And if you take nothing else away today from this webinar, I wish for you to take that. Okay. So that brings us to the end of topic number 2. I'm going to give you a brief moment now, a very brief pause to go ahead and jot down any notes that you might have, and do indeed, don't hesitate, fire away any questions that you've got for us as well. We've got one in today so far. I'm always happy to answer a few more. So I'll see you again back here very, very shortly. All right, perfect. So moving us on to the third and final topic of today's presentation, go where the competition isn't. So what does this mean specifically? Well, does your competition advertise heavily on Google, for example? Okay. Now, what we've got to think about here is both online and in person, how can we make sure that not only are we dominating a niche, not only are we focusing on our own digital agency and making that the best possible agency it can be, not only are we assessing but not copying, we've also got to think about where our competition is not. Now, if you're in a bricks and mortar location, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you, of course, to move away from your competition. But what we've got to think about here is if our competition advertises heavily on Google, we could look at doing social media. We could look at offering different items for sale, okay, as in services. We could look at different places to sell them. We could look at different ways to make ourselves unique. Now, if we're on Google and we see our competition, it's very, very easy. You just pop in a Google search for digital agencies, London or whatever, and see who shows up on Google. All right, see who shows up on social media regularly. Now, ironically, once you start searching for these things on Google, you'll probably start seeing them on Facebook as well, okay, or other forms of social media. Now, here's the key thing. Somebody's advertising heavily on Google, you can go and use social media. You can go and do email marketing. You can go and do something else. If you find that one person or one business is dominating a certain section, or a list of businesses is dominating a certain section, you can then go and find some other way, okay? Don't get into expensive bidding wars. It's pointless. It's not fruitful. It doesn't provide much for your business. You don't want to be competing with the big guns spending lots and lots and lots of money. Okay. I don't know specifically what the number is, but I would be pretty confident in saying that probably someone like Netflix has a very, very, very high ad spend across social media and Google, for example. So if you're launching a video streaming service, for example, would you then want to go and dive in and start competing with Netflix on Google? Very, very unlikely, because it's such an astronomical amount of money is very likely being spent on paid advertising for them. So if you try and get involved, you're going to end up fighting with this and probably reap very little to almost no reward at all. Okay. So bidding wars are expensive, time consuming, and rarely rewarding. I want you to think about this each time you look at any form of advertising for your business. Am I going to get into a bidding war here? Am I going to tie myself in to spending tens of pounds, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 100, 200, whatever? The number can go up and up and up if you get yourself into a bidding war. And for what? The same customer that you could find somewhere else via email marketing or social media, or localized campaigns or flyer campaigns. You've got to think outside the box. How can you get the attention of these people without having to pay a large amount of money? If I told you that you could go next door to your neighbor and say, hello, would you like to order any digital services from my agency? And they'd say yes. Would you then go and spend 50 quid or 100 quid to go and get the same neighbor to go and do the same thing, to conduct the same transaction with your business? Unlikely. Of course, your neighbor probably doesn't want to do business with you, but it's a great example to use. There are other more cost-effective ways that you can gather customers for your business. Okay. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't use paid advertising at all, because it's a wonderful tool that can introduce you to people that you didn't even know existed. The wonderful thing about paid advertising is that people, prospects, businesses can come into your business that you didn't even know were there. Okay. You wouldn't have even thought to speak to. All right. They can be new and upcoming businesses. They might not have a big online presence. You might not even have thought to look in their niche sector or industry. Okay. So bidding wars are expensive, time consuming, and rarely rewarding. Try and be aware of where these bidding wars are happening and avoid them. And if possible, Look at other ways that you can advertise for customers. Okay, you must find the pockets where your competition isn't. And often this means starting local. So if you've got a big national brand that you're competing against and they're advertising across the whole of the UK, you can probably slot in somewhere on Google, on any search engines, on social media, anywhere that you can advertise. And if you do a localized campaign, they're not going to have as refined targeting within that localized area as you are. Imagine they're throwing a big blanket over the UK. That's their goal. You're throwing a blanket over one specific town. So you're actually getting in underneath the big blanket and saying to these people, hey, look at me first. Look at me before you look at the big chains. Okay. So you've got to find the pockets where your competition isn't. And often that can mean starting local. It's a great tip for you to follow if you're looking at doing paid advertising. Do it in a localized specific area and you'll end up spending likely less money to get the same caliber of prospects, hopefully. Okay, so national brands may not communicate as well with your community as you can. Use that to your advantage. Can you get flyers? Can you get charitable campaigns going? Can you do some PR? Can you get your business recognized? Can you do billboards, localized billboards, posters, petrol stations? All of these places where you can communicate with your community. You know every niche, every suburb, every area of your town, your community. You know the people, you know the businesses. Use that to your advantage. These big national chains don't have that kind of information, but you do because you've been living in that town 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Okay. National brands don't have the ability to compete on the same level as you do in that very specific pocket. So make sure that you capitalize on that where you can. Okay, so that brings us to the end of topic number 3 now. I'm going to give you a brief moment to digest it, fire away any notes and any questions, and then we're going to do a debrief of today's webinar, and then we're going to do the Q&A session. I'll see you again in just. Okay, perfect. So today's recap. Number 1, don't fall into the trap of copying your competition, something you want to avoid very much. It's not effective, it's not productive. You'll find yourself blending in with everybody else. Define you and your business. What makes you stand out? What makes you unique? What makes you special? And therefore, what would then encourage a prospect to wish to do business with you? And finally, find your pocket. Don't get into bidding wars. Step away from the competition altogether if you can. Focus on things like networking events, online networking events. Find your own people to work with. Find your own businesses to work with. All of these wonderful things, get referrals, connections, all of these fantastic ways in which you can make sure that you're gathering business for yourself and not getting into massive, expensive bidding wars with your competition. Okay, so as always, a massive thank you for attending. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you today. If you'd like to talk to a member of our team, you can head over to iob-business.com/talk-to-us. You can go ahead on here and book a time that suits you to have a call with us as you wish. So what I'm going to do is leave that link up on the screen for you there so you can get a good look at it. And I'm going to go and find the questions that I have from you lovely people on today's webinar. Okay, so there we go. First question, shouldn't I watch my competition's every move? So question for you here, if I answer a question with a question, how much time would that take? All right, time could be spent improving your digital agency. Time could be spent refining your own services, your own customers, all of these wonderful things that you could be doing instead of essentially, looking at your competition all the time, spending loads and loads of time on this. You want to be the digital agency that everybody's watching. You want to be the innovator. You want to be the trailblazer. You want to be the one that people are looking at and thinking, wow, that's the business that we want to be, because you know what they don't. You know that you shouldn't be copying your competition's every move, but they might not have that information. Okay. And also, be prepared. If you're excelling, you're doing exceedingly well, others may look at you and try and replicate. That's not unusual. But a fantastic question. I hope that answers it for you. Next question, I struggle with unique selling points. Cool. So these can be anything from customer service to expertise in social media ads to sending your clients welcome gifts. Think outside the box here. Right? So enjoy yourself with whatever you're doing. Think about how you can be unique. What makes you unique as a person? Are you wonderful, happy? Are you serious and focused? Are you amazing at sales? Are you amazing at marketing? Do you have a great mind for numbers? Do you have the ability to catch details that others don't? Think about yourself and who you are. What makes you unique? What are you best at? What are you truly, truly great at? And try and figure out how you can incorporate that potentially even into your digital agency as well. Another awesome question. Remember that you are unique and there will be absolutely something that you can offer that others can't. Any more questions for today? Doesn't look like there is. Okay, perfect. So, as always, a total pleasure. I very much wish you an amazing rest of your week, and I very much look forward to seeing you again on the next iOB business webinar. Take care and bye for now.